So Dr. Karim Hanna is a family physician, educator, and clinical informaticist, serving as a founding program director of the family medicine residency at Tampa General Hospital, affiliated with the USF Morsani College of Medicine. An associate professor at USF, he leads initiatives at the intersection of education, innovation, and technology, with the focus on integrating AI into medical education and clinical workflows. A nationally recognized speaker and author, he has presented on AI in medicine at over 30 institutions and serves on multiple national task forces, including STFM. His blog, AI plus MED, MedEd, and recent book, Preparing for Departure, End-of-Life Decision-Making Through a Christian Lens, reflect his commitment to guiding clinicians through complex decisions from AI to end-of-life care. Dr. Hanna, thank you for joining us today, and please go ahead and start your slides.
Sure. It's nice to meet you all. I will share my screen in a second. Just before I get rolling, I'd love to know who's in the room. I see Dr. Ortega, your program director. Nice to meet you. Dr. Unachoku, I don't know if I said that right.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Where are you at?
I'm calling from Texas, and then I'm actually an IMG trained from Ukraine, so I'm actually planning to apply for the training for this March.
Wonderful, wonderful. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
We've got a couple other folks I see. I don't know if it's Dr. Tempe, but Mario Tempe. It says attending. I'm not sure if you're also one of the faculty at a program is my guess. DHMG must be a program that I don't know about. I'm just not familiar with the acronym.
Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Dr. Sabam. Yeah, I'm one of the core faculty at the family medicine residency in the East Valley in Arizona. So in
Awesome.
Gilbert.
Wonderful. Nice to meet you. And then we've got someone else. I'm not sure that they didn't change their name yet, but it's okay. This is great to have a small group, and hopefully you guys find this conversation fruitful. Because it's such a small group, I will encourage you to cut me off and ask questions. My goal for you is that this is leverageable material. Yeah, so I will get us kicked off here, sharing my screen. Let's rock and roll. And anytime you want to cut me off, just cut me off. I'm Karim again, and let's see what we can take from this conversation. I like to start with a story. So stories are nice. If you are familiar at all with this movie, and you may or may not be familiar, but I was in elementary school when this movie came out, and I was so excited. But like every true fan of Star Wars, I had to bring my friends over, and we wanted to watch the whole series before we went and watched the new movie when it came out. But even if you know nothing about the series and you can't appreciate the lore, you're probably familiar with this. Who's this?
C-3PO.
Fantastic. All right, so C-3PO, and no one even batted an eye when I said, "Who is this?" We assigned personhood to this robot, right? C-3PO is good at a few things. He's really good at following protocols. And C-3PO at the beginning of episode 1, he was found in a dumpster basically by Anakin, and Anakin was rebuilding him to help out his mom because mom needed help around the house. So the droid, or the tech, we can say, the technology, was leveraged from one thing to another thing. It was built originally to follow protocols and was leveraged to make human work easier. Right? That's the base of it. And he was trained to assist. That's why he was designed to assist. And this person from the 1970s, originally when those movies started coming out, is not far from reality. At the time, it was science fiction, but now it's just around the corner. And these things are coming to life, quote unquote life, right? They're not really alive, depending on how you define it, but I don't think they're really alive. And I don't think they're really people. They're robots, but we should be able to leverage them appropriately. The story continues, and on the right, there is a video. So I'll show you the video in a second, but you probably are familiar with this. And show of hands quickly, who owns one of these? You each own one of these? Do you have a blender in your house? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You're familiar with blenders. You've made You've made smoothies before.
Mhm.
What if I told you I needed you to make me a smoothie without a blender? That'd be pretty complicated. You would probably find something hard like a rock or a hammer of some sort, and you'd get the fruit and the ice and you'd smash them. You would have eventually a smoothie, and you'd also have a big mess. But smoothies take a large task that we've never probably had to do in our lifetime without it, right? I probably wouldn't want a smoothie if I didn't have a blender, to be honest with you. But it makes a big task simpler. And then you're familiar with these things. By the way, all these pictures are made by ChatGPT, which is like my subtle, like I'm playing within the play here. But these vacuums that are now rolling around your house at night to clean up the floor. It's interesting, right? When I was growing up, it was very common that my mom would give me the vacuum and say, "Okay, Kareem, time to vacuum the house." It was my chore. It was my responsibility. But my kids, and you see two of them there on the right of your screen, my kids will never have to vacuum the house. I don't think by the time they're old enough. My oldest is 3 now. So let's assume when she's 8, we'll start giving her some vacuuming responsibility, right? And I think that's a little young, but let's say she's 8 and she starts to vacuum. I think the technology in these things is going to get so much better in the next 5 years that she probably won't have to vacuum. Doesn't mean that we won't have to clean. It doesn't mean, like for the blender, it doesn't mean that we don't have to gather the ingredients. So there are still some tests that we have to do, but technology should shift our work, Watch this video. We're walking through a store and there's this thing moving in front of us. See, my daughter's eyes she can't turn away from this machine that is moving through the store. Any guesses? This is like a big like Sam's Club, Costco place here in Tampa. It's called BJ's. Any guesses on what it's doing?
Is it scanning your purchases for you?
Good question. It is not,
Okay.
but that is a use. I imagine they probably could roll that out fairly simply. It's scanning the aisles. It's counting. It's taking inventory. What shelves need to be replenished, right?
Okay.
And this is an older video. I mean, my daughter here looks about maybe 1.5, maybe 2. She's 3.5 now. So it's been about maybe over a year. So these things have been rolling around our stores and taking inventory. What's interesting is my first job when I was in high school, I worked at Staples. Remember when we used to go to the store to buy things? We used to go to the stores. Yeah. So I worked at Staples and I used to count boxes of pens and printer ink and stuff like that all day, and paper all day. Now that job is going to be changed. You know, that person, you wonder, like people ask all the time, you know, is AI going to make primary care go away? Are we not going to have jobs anymore? These are the sorts of discussions that we need to be having. I don't think so. I think our job will change. I don't think it'll make us lose our job. And I always use the example of when they invented the printer. The printer is another big one. People probably thought we'll never write again. We'll never use a pen and paper again. But I just came out of a meeting where I was writing on a notebook, and that's how I take notes during my meetings. There you go, a notepad right there. Fantastic. So these sorts of things, it's important. We shift, we don't remove usually. We shift, but we have to adjust. Where else does AI come into play? You've heard of the idea of autopilot. Autopilot, if you're inside an airplane, in the cockpit, how much do pilots actually fly the plane? Well, for the most part now, your commercial flights that we get on, you know, flying Southwest to go to, you know, Nashville for the weekend or whatever it is, I'm not, the pilot isn't really doing very much at all, actually. It's all automated from takeoff to landing. They are there just in case. And, you know, this is becoming a reality now where it's more than just airlines, but cars, as you know, everywhere, it's happening. I'm sure in bigger cities, I mean, I know in bigger cities out west, I know for a fact, like in LA and Phoenix, I'm not sure about Albuquerque and stuff, but There are now self-driving cars that you can get in without an Uber driver. There's no driver, it's just the car. You get in the back and it takes you to where you're going. And as much as I'd like to think that I'm a really good driver, right? Let's say Karim thinks he's the best driver on the road. I'm sure everyone thinks that, right? None of you make mistakes when you're driving, right? You're never going to be looking in the back on both sides, rear view mirrors, and in the front, like in 4 directions all at the same time, right? Like, so directly behind you, 2 rear views, and in front of you at the same time. It's just never going to happen. We are not capable as humans. And if you watch this video, this driver never even touches the wheel from beginning to the end. I'm going to turn it off because it kind of makes me dizzy. But I have a question. My question is, you are walking on foot and there's a 4-way stop sign. The 4 cars are all without drivers, all automated. Do you feel safer if you're crossing the street, or do you feel less safe than if it was humans at the stop sign?
Probably less safe because I know a Waymo killed a lady in Phoenix. But she was probably jaywalking, but still, like, it didn't see her. So
Didn't see her. And these sorts of things are happening. And then the question then, if we apply this to clinical decision making, right? Do we trust computers more? We have something called an automation bias. Automation bias is like, if it's coming out of a machine, it must be right. If it's telling me, Kareem, this patient needs this blood work or this order, or this patient is septic, or this patient is due for X, Y, or Z test, I put my view down and I raise up the computer's view because it's from a computer, and I assume that it's better than me at checking lists and following protocols. It's not always the case. Okay. With that, let's go through some objectives. So for the next, let's say 30 minutes. We'll try to expedite it so we can have kind of discussion, but if we talk in the middle, it's okay. We're going to comprehend some basic concepts. I want you to leave knowing a little bit more about what the basics are of AI and what they mean. We're going to build on some live demonstrations of ChatGPT specifically. I'm not married to ChatGPT. I'm not paid by ChatGPT, but that's the one that's most popular nowadays. So that's what we'll be leveraging today. And then we're going to talk about some limitations. And we'll start with, what do you already know? So unmute your mics and tell us, what are you already familiar with in all things related to AI? What are you familiar with?
So we're using AI scribes now in our clinic.
Good. Which one?
And so we use oh my gosh, what is it called? A bridge.
A bridge. Very good. Very good.
So we're eventually, so that works well with Epic, but we're on a different EMR, so we have to copy and paste everything. So that's the one thing that's not great about it, but it picks up a lot of information that normally when I'm trying to type in the chart, I miss.
Yeah.
So I'll go back and read the note and it's like, oh, wow, okay, I didn't hear that. So, and it also saves the information, which is great. So I don't have to do my note right then because I know it's all going to be there.
Right. So it's making your life a little easier, it sounds.
In that regard, yes. I don't think it's saving me any time yet, but
yeah, especially if it's copy pasted.
Right, exactly. So I have to go back and do it. The other thing I've been using a lot is open evidence.
Nice. We'll talk
which
about
is
that.
AI driven. And
Yeah.
so it's been really, really nice for that.
Beautiful.
And I feel like it's trustworthy.
Yeah.
Trust but verify, right?
I mean, it's trust but verify. Exactly. Yeah. My program director used to say that to me all the time. So yeah, we have to keep that in mind. Trust but verify. What else do we know? It's everywhere. It's impacting us every single day, and it's here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere. So it's a matter of us getting with the program, or we will miss out quite a bit. Okay, here's some key basic definitions. AI is a very big word, and under AI, there are different subgroups. So AI is really old too. That's another thing. So for example, one funny one is like, how many of us count our platelets when we order a CBC? We don't count our platelets. I trust that the machine is telling us the right, or the lab is telling me the right number. I don't see a patient and say, oh, you don't look like a 250 platelet count. You seem like a 300 platelet count. It's not something that I see with my eyes. But even the people, the pathologists don't count the platelets. It's all machine driven, and it has been for over 40 years, I think. It's like a long time. So it's like these are not new things, but AI has been around. We've just now been labeling it more and talking about it more, especially since the rise of generative AI that has been publicly available. That's what these chats are that we're talking about now. So under AI, you have a group called machine learning, and then you have natural language processing, which we kind of talked to with or spoke to with the idea of ambient scribes. You have computer vision, and you have robotics. So under machine learning is this idea of like, how in the world does YouTube know exactly what I want to watch next? You know, or how does Instagram know exactly what post I would be interested in to give me next on my screen? Remember that you are the product for these companies. They are selling your data, right? And they are getting paid by advertisers to leverage your data. And your data could be your demographics, your age, your sex, all things that are you. But then your habits, so the things that you click on and like, are what they are selling. So they're able to target certain ads to your age group, to your personhood. And all the fine print that you click through when you're downloading a new app are approving your, your voice and your attention to be sold, essentially. That's machine learning. That's machine learning. Natural language processing are like how I can talk to my phone or Alexa at home or whatever it is on the fly. And then there's the idea of, the ambient scribes. There's also this language translation piece. And if you're, if you use Apple products, the AirPods are due for an update at the end of this year. And there's talk of live language translation in your AirPods. And this is very real life. It's like something that's like it was sci-fi years ago, but it's becoming reality where I can talk to you in Arabic and you can hear me in Spanish, and we're having a full conversation with the AirPods listening in. Computer vision, you're all familiar with on a couple of levels. The first is probably unlocking your cell phone, right? When you look at your phone and it knows it's you, there's facial recognition, and the computer is able to identify who you are. This is also applied in like when we're traveling, coming across the border, and the global entry thing scans my retina, right? And it knows exactly who Karim is before I even pull out my passport. It knows exactly who I am. So that's computer vision in action that you see or you've interacted with. The implications of computer vision are huge, from platelet counting, like we mentioned, where it's able to estimate a number based on a screen, to interpreting pathology slides, to interpreting radiology images, MRIs, PETs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, at a way faster, more efficient rate than humans. And those are the fields that have been implementing AI tools for years, and recently, just with this boom in artificial intelligence, those fields are being impacted more and more every day. And then the robotics piece we already talked about, like the self-driving car, already we've alluded to. Any questions on these things? Great.
I don't have questions, but I just wanted to like chip in. You were asking about AI tools that we know. So there's Google Notebook LM. And that one, people usually use it for if you have an article you want to listen to on your way driving, you can just upload it there, and it's gonna convert the article to podcast, and then you can just listen to it on your way. Just to kind of, people like to just kind of save the time instead of literally reading those articles, like important journals or something.
Thank you for bringing that up. So Notebook LM, for those who are not familiar, I will talk about it later, but I've also written about it on my blog, and I'll share a link to my blog at the end. But you can turn any text into an audio podcast. And we know our attention is better when there are multiple people talking. And it does a cool job of making multiple voices so you can hear people talking about the contents that you've uploaded. And it's becoming like the coolest tutor for any subject area. You can become a subject matter expert very quickly by just listening to a bunch of podcasts on the topics that you've uploaded. So thank you for bringing that up. Let's talk about large language models. This is the piece that I alluded to earlier when I talked about generative AI. AI itself is old, But these models that you're familiar with, like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or Grok, or take your pick, there's a bunch of them now, are now able to be accessed, and you can ask questions of them very easily. They're trained on a whole lot of content, the entire internet, right? They're trained on everything that's online. And they're able to generate human-like text. So they're taking your words and responding to them like a human would. I asked for a picture. It's more than a control F is what I was typing. It's more than a control find. This is a busted image. Your control button and your F don't sit next to each other on the keyboard. So it took what I asked for a keyboard strike of control F and it made it up. This is what we call a hallucination. It's wrong, but it's right. In other words, right? Like it answered my request, but it's not the true rendition of what reality is. And I take this second always to talk about what is a hallucination. You've heard about it. It's always the question. A hallucination, in my mind, is some of their biggest strengths, but it's often framed as a negative. A hallucination is its ability to be creative. But creativity is not always what we want. You want creative when you're asking for a story or art, but you don't always want creative when you're asking for clinical decision support, right? And so these things have been trained. If they're trained on good things, they do well. If they're trained on poor data, then they do poorly. And I want you to think it's like dictionary plus encyclopedia, and it's the best predictive text you've ever used. So it's able to predict more than just the next word, but the next sentence and paragraph and even book chapter if you asked it to. And it takes context into account. So it's not just ad-libbing from scratch, but it's taking who you are, what you've asked it before, your role, your job, and it's able to take all of these things into account when it answers your request. So if I say make spaghetti, usually the first thing that comes to mind is like a recipe or food. But if it decides to make a Statue of Liberty out of spaghetti, that doesn't make sense contextually, right? Like that doesn't, it's out of nowhere. So these models are able to take context into account, which we've never had before. Like I mentioned a couple of times already, there are many models. Remember that they are not a search engine. They're not like Google search. Google search is looking for key phrases that you've asked, and it looks for where they repeat, okay? But these are predictive models, like statistics. There's a whole lot of math behind the scenes that you aren't seeing, but it's predicting what is the most likely word that Dr. Ortega wants to see next on her request. And what is the most likely phrase or paragraph that she wants to see. And it's all about the prompting. So if you take nothing else from today, I want to talk to you a little bit about prompting. So let's talk.
Funny story. I
Yes,
did a
please.
course, is a Lean Six Sigma course.
Mhm.
And it was an open book test. So this
Yes.
is new to me. I have not been in school for, gosh, 25 years.
Cool.
So, this is new. So I was like,
Yeah.
some of these questions I don't know. And I used ChatGPT to help
Very
me
good.
answer some of them. And it was amazing. And you're right. Like, it was just like, okay, she wants to talk about Lean Six Sigma. So
Yes.
even if I didn't specifically say that, it was like, that's what we're talking about. So it
Yep.
kept giving me the, answers related to Lean Six Sigma, whether or not I asked for
Exactly.
them.
Exactly.
And so
So
it was
did you
very,
get
very
your
interesting.
did you get your green belt?
I did.
Good for you. Good for you.
So
So if you talked about a green belt with the machine without mentioning the context of Lean Six Sigma, the first thing that comes to mind is usually karate or a green belt, like it's some fashion thing, right? Like that, those are the things that come to my mind. But when you
right.
bring in the context of Six Sigma, everything
Mhm.
changes, right? So
Yeah.
something that has multiple meanings like green belt, take
Mhm.
context in mind. So this is the slide that I want you to walk home with, or go home with, sorry, regarding prompt building. By this slide, you will go from a complete novice of leveraging these models to at least a moderate, I think, skilled person using these tools, okay? So the first thing, it's the mnemonic is CARE, or the acronym is CARE for, because we're in medicine, right? So CARE is how I built it. Context is the first thing. So C, context. Who are you? What's your goal? And what's your background? What's the background of the situation? Like the Lean Six Sigma question. Giving it more details gives you a better response. So imagine big prompt for a very specific question, for a small response, you'll get a very good high quality response. Small prompt for a large request, like write me an essay about green belts, you're going to get a very vague, fluffy language essay. Does that make sense? So the more specific, the more you pour into your prompt, the better response you will get. I mean, I have projects that I've worked on with students and residents where our prompting is like 7, 8 pages of a prompt for a question. For example, like a task of interpreting an EKG well. We've built custom models, and I'll show you some of those things in a little bit. So context. A is the action. This is the verb. This is create, develop, design, summarize, revise. What is the verb that you're asking of it? Okay, that's the A. The role. Who do you want the large language model to be? Do you want the model to be your assistant? Do you want it to be a PhD level peer review? Do you want it to be an expert architect, right? Like, what is the role? This makes a difference. This helps it build a persona behind, like we talked about with C3PO. It's a persona behind the machine. And that allows for a voice. You can also ask for a style, like respond to me in Shakespearean English, right? Because I want you to speak like we're in the 14th century or 15th century. And then what are your expectations? So this is the E in care. How long? Do you want a paragraph? Do you want an outline? Do you want a style? Do you want bullet points? What is it that you're hoping for in response? And this will give you a better expectation as opposed to just open-ended. If you leave it open-ended, you will naturally be disappointed, right? Like you'll want something more. I usually add in my prompt, for example, to remove like fluffy language. I don't want verbosity. I want direct kind of succinct words, and it makes it more precise. And then I always say this is the care, right? If you prompt like this, it makes life easy. The other thing to remember is that it's like chat GPT. It's not a question and answer. It's a chat. It's a back and forth. There has to be a give and take. So I always like to include examples. I want you to model it after X. For example, a common one that I talk about with this is question making for our trainees. Ask for, giving it 10 questions that you've written before or you've pulled from somewhere else will help it model to build stronger questions, and then refine. So you can correct it, say, no, that was wrong, that was not right, this is not how I prefer it, give me another example or another option. Okay, so this is the big take-home slide for you for prompt building. That Pearl is
So
also
last night I should have like it, when I had 30 minutes left. Like, okay, I am a physician attempting to pass my Greenbelt exam. So
yes, exactly,
please help me with that. And that's where
exactly.
my questions are coming from. I mean, I think it kind of figured it out, but
It
I thought,
does,
I could actually have ChatGPT teach me this whole course
correct.
if I knew
Do you
which questions to ask, right?
have an account, or were you using it just like kind of the free version?
Well, that ran out, so I had to pay so that I could
Cool.
keep getting answers, but it
When
just
you
kept getting better and better. It was amazing.
yeah, when you pay, it gets better at you. So now it
Hmm.
knows that you're a green belted physician, right? So the next
Hmm.
time you ask it a question, it's going to base it on those two things.
Okay.
You mentioned your program director, or you mentioned your family medicine, and it
Hmm.
just keeps building who you are,
Yeah.
and it's able to respond. So everything's like relevant. It's like, oh, it knew exactly what I meant when I said X, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So because we're in medicine, we like case presentations. So I'm going to take you through the case of a new doctor. So this doctor struggled quite a bit when they finished medical school. They were graduating and they wanted to make sure that they passed their step 3. So they wanted to pass their step 3. So we're going to see how AI can help us with board prep. So you see this long question stem always makes this doctor a little nervous, anxious when they see a long stem of a question, and they, aren't really sharp. So they're going to try to answer this question, but they want ChatGPT to help them out. So they take the question, copy and paste it into ChatGPT, and it gives them a nice answer. So no prompting, right? I'm not a healthcare professional, but based on the information, the answer is alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. Now, my purpose of sharing this with you is because this is changing how our students and our learners are learning, how our residents and our students are learning. They're able to ask the question, get a full-on response, but then they're able to take it a step further. Watch this. So explain this to me like I'm in 7th grade. You're my science teacher. Please create to me a graphic to support your teaching, right? So they're able to ask it to create, besides just picking the right answer from the multiple choice, they're able to ask it to create something. And it does a pretty good job. Let's break it down like we're in 7th grade science class. Imagine your body's a machine and the lungs are the engine, blah, blah, blah. And then it gives us the diagram that it built very quickly with the thought process, the differential diagnosis, and the reasons why alpha-1 antitrypsin is the correct answer. Fascinating. Let me tell you a little bit about learning theory. I did, so both my parents are teachers. I was not ever planning on being a teacher, but I, fell in love with it in residency, and I did it, through college. I tutored math, and that's how I paid my way through college. Like I taught math, and then I did a faculty development like fellowship, and that's where I really started to see, oh, there's a whole like approach. People get their PhDs in like how to learn and how to teach. Like there's a whole space here, and I wasn't really aware of that. You kind of assumed going through training that if you're a content expert, you are a good teacher, but that's not always the case. When you are teaching a big classroom of people, let's say you have 180 students in the medical school class and you're giving a lecture to the whole hall, every single person in that room has a different starting point on the content that you're teaching. When I started this lecture, you each in the room have a different starting point of what your understandings are of these concepts, right? It's impossible for me to know all of that information when I'm teaching. That's why the best sort of teaching is always one-on-one. And when you're tutoring, I can constantly assess, do you know the quadratic formula? Are you able to graph or find the answer to this geometry question? I'm constantly asking you as we're going through, so I'm able to assess where you're at, and then I'm able to bridge the gap between where you are and where I need you to be. But it's hard to do on a big scale. So AI is now shifting the way we've been teaching or learning medicine from a group level type of experience to a very individual type of experience. This has already been happening with students and residents, frankly, leaning more into question banks, and then Anki came out, and Anki decks are the whole new thing. I don't know if I would have done well with Anki. I feel like I may have used it as a medical student, but I was before that time. But there are lots of these third-party resources that are coming out. This AI is changing all of that. You've heard of Khan Academy. Khan Academy now has a whole AI-built driven platform for all ages, from preschool through college and through your degrees, that can teach you anything, which is pretty exciting and cool, but also kind of overwhelming. So if we're not leveraging these tools, our learners are. And I think that puts us at a disadvantage as teachers, right? We took this a step further. We said, well, how do these models do? This was published last year on the family medicine in training exam. And we took the models that were popular at the time, and we saw that ChatGPT scored an 86.5%, which is a scaled score of 730. Just to give you an idea, when I finished my residency and I took my boards, I scored a 580. And that's a pass. It's not the strongest pass, but it's a pass. I think that, and Dr. Ortega may know more than me, I think it's like a 400 something to pass. I can't remember what it is to pass.
I think when I took it originally, it was something like 380, but it wasn't. Yeah. So I'm thinking like a 580 is pretty good, right?
It sounds right. 380, yeah. 400-ish to pass. So just to give you guys an idea of where things stand. But based on the scale, like the predicting with this score, it has 100% chance of passing. This was 4.0 just last week or 2 weeks ago. Now 5.0 is out. ChatGPT 5 is out. So it's pretty impressive. These tools are here to stay, and they are good at answering multiple choice questions. Now, what about building differentials? all of us build differentials all the time. Some of us are better at it than others. And this new doctor that we talked about in the case is now in clinic practicing on their own and trying to do a better job at building differentials. So how did we test this? This was another paper that we published. We took 50 case reports. Like case reports are zebras, right? They're like weird cases that come up. And we took the case reports, we removed the formal diagnosis, and we put the whole case report with the lab values into ChatGPT and the different models, and we asked them, can you give us a differential diagnosis? And we had some physicians review the cases. So with this, sorry, it's the paper on the left. My animations were out of order. So the paper on the left, we found that ChatGPT with lenient accuracy we defined as like AKI or CKD can be the same thing, like interchangeable, as long as it's kidney disease related. Almost 80%, and this was statistically significant, which is pretty interesting, right? Like, so they're able to identify correct diagnoses without a multiple choice answer, or appropriate differentials without a multiple choice answer. So that took it a level up. On the right side is a paper that I was not involved in, but it's interesting because we used generic large language models. What they did in their paper was they built a model specific to PICU patients, like patients in the pediatric ICU. And the smaller fine-tuned model does better than the larger models when asking for these sorts of questions. That tells us that we should be building models that are more specific to family medicine for the stuff that we do, so that it does a better job in the space that we need it. What about evidence-based medicine? If you ask evidence-based guidelines for management of COPD, it can do a pretty good job, with some citations for you and sources. You can ask for a diagram. It can give you a diagram of what's next, what is the appropriate next steps. But it's not perfect. Now, we talked about this earlier. Open evidence is the new fad across the board. People are shifting gears towards this use for quickly gathering evidence-based insight from all things PubMed, everything that's been published. And I love to use it together. I bring it up in the room with my patients or with my learners. If you're on rounds with me, you see like 6 or 7 of the people on the team are constantly on open evidence asking it questions. Now, this is an interesting new dilemma now. I am no longer on rounds or in clinic. I'm no longer the content expert. I'm no longer the sage, the wonderful old doctor that's been around for longer than me. So I'm no longer getting that sort of like authority. Our learners, even if you're a first-year medical student, can question your comment and say something like, "Oh, I don't know, Dr. Hanna, that doesn't sound in line with what open evidence said. I looked it up and this is what it said." But I like to pull it. I like to ask it and do it with my patients in the room. And the question of like trust, do patients trust you more or less that you're telling them you're using this? It's always an ethical conversation. Did you ever tell your patients before when you need to look something up? Like, 1 second, I need to go talk to my nurse, and you step out and do something like look something up on UpToDate and come back. Did you have to disclose to your patient that you looked up whatever they needed on UpToDate, or the latest treatment plan, or the dosage of the medication that you were starting? But I like to pull it up and I share it with my patients anyway. Open evidence is also now talking about it's all HIPAA compliant, so you can copy paste your case and ask it to calculate the necessary scores for a new medication. Or it's also good at giving now practice guidelines from New England Journal of Medicine specifically. They have an affiliation together. What's really interesting that I don't have on these slides, actually, if you subscribe to my blog at the end of this, on Monday, the blog is about, or I mentioned Open Evidence just put out a new thing on building question banks. So now if you want to study for step 1, 2, or 3, Open Evidence can build you customized questions for the area that you're focused on, which is
Crazy.
wild. Yeah, it's wild. It's like a whole new, they're really interrupting, because what they did first is they built out all their users. Like there's tons of users across the country. They got the affiliation with the New England Journal. Then they got a huge fund, like people were investing in it. They raised like I don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars very quickly. And then they rolled this out. They just rolled it out like last week. So I haven't used it a whole lot, but I talk about it in my blog because I used it a couple of times this week. Anyway, so just FYI, it's really interesting.
I had a patient, I think it was yesterday. He he had stopped his Eliquis when he ran out of his prescription. He said, I don't feel anything. I don't need to take this. And so
Yeah.
we had this long conversation. Then he says, well, actually, the problem is I forget to take that second dose. So I'd rather take something that's once a day. And so I knew generally the Eliquis had a lower risk of bleeding, right? But I was like, I want to quantify this for him. So I asked open evidence, like right there in the room, I said, what is the difference in bleeding risk between these two drugs? And I was I knew it was different, but I didn't know it was that different, so I'm learning like a ton because I didn't know it was like twice as likely to bleed on Xarelto. So when I told him that, then he was like, okay, fine, let's just stay with the Eliquis, right? So anyway, it was kind of so it was, and he came, he was concerned about his ears being plugged with wax, like that was his main complaint, but
Right.
but why aren't you taking your Eliquis? You're gonna have a
You
stroke.
saved his life, right? He came up with the wax and you saved his life. And like the thing is like you made a data-driven decision based on a tool that is at your fingertips so quickly in the moment. Whereas to pull that data, you could have done it without open evidence, but it would have been such a labor that you wouldn't have ever actually done it, because your plate is so full with other things. Yes, Dr. Unachukwu. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to find out, like, do you have any data for because you said like the open evidence kind of writes question banks for people that like interns or, people that are doing some USMLE studies. So do you have any data that shows that people have used the question banks from there, and what is the success rates of?
Yeah, this is all brand new. It was just out last week or two, so I don't think there's any data yet. But it sounds like a place for good questions, right? Like good research opportunity there.
Nice.
Yeah. So this new doctor is now graduated and now a faculty member expected to teach and doesn't really know how to teach. So let's talk about administrative tasks. And now this is kind of where I shift a little bit to more of a demonstration. So, and again, you all are experts, but let's say you did a survey and you have all the data and you want to build something with the survey, but you can't do it quickly. Can you see my screen still? Can you all see my ChatGPT? Beautiful. So I took the contents from that survey. Is mental illness a real condition? And I'm going to say, so I'm prompting after the survey results. You are an expert statistician. Please create a pie graph with this data. Make the colors green and gold with labels. And then I'm going to say one more step, export it into a PowerPoint slide, right? So I'm asking a pretty basic request. Some of you are like, oh, come on, Karim, like I'm really good at Excel. That's a super basic thing. I could do it with my eyes closed. And I would tell you, yeah, you're probably good and you're probably really great at Excel. And we'll see how it did. But then my next argument is at scale, if you are scaling this skill set, so it did a pretty good job. It has labels, it has the percentages, which I didn't ask for, and it has a title. For some reason, it doesn't really look like a circle. I don't know why. It's like awkwardly like, maybe I can stretch it out. There we go. That's a little better. So like, I don't know why it did that, right? Small little error. But my challenge is always like, if you can do one, fantastic. But can you do 50, right? And how fast can you do 50? And like, if I were to pull up the actual survey, this is the data I pulled from the actual survey. What if I were to ask you to build a pie graph for each of these columns, right? So there's 6 of them there or whatever. If you were to do that, I'm sure you could do it, but I could ask for all of them at once and that would really expedite things. Would really expedite things. Okay. Let's go back. Questions on that before we keep going?
Yeah, I do have a question. I know like there's some kind of like drawbacks to using AI, like if you have to do some research and so I just want to have an idea. So like if you use the chat GPT to actually like draft out those results, how do you explain? Do you have to like put it in your like in the research work? Okay,
And your
I used
methods.
uh-huh.
I would put it in my methods for sure.
Okay.
And that's part of the ethics of it, is like, do you need to cite that
Yeah.
you use
Uh-huh.
ChatGPT? And my question is always like, well, if I have to cite it, do my students have to cite it? Or if my learners leveraged it on their reflection essay or whatever that I asked them to do they, and they don't tell me, should they be penalized for using it? I don't know. I have no idea.
That's a
These are
question.
these are the questions that we need to be
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, as a faculty member, we struggle going from 0 to 1 when we are asked to build something. We're often asked to build things. So let's say I want to build a course. If you had a course and you shared it with me, like I'm able to take your like syllabus, for example, and I'm able to expand on the syllabus very quickly and apply it. But going from no syllabus to a syllabus is hard, like from 0 to 1. I find it at least more complicated for me. So let's see how ChatGPT can help us. So we're opening ChatGPT and I'm prompting it. You're a family medicine program director. Create a 2-week elective course syllabus. I want a syllabus for family medicine residents surrounding topics of teaching and learning to develop their skill set as educators, right? Please include which ACGME milestones they would be accomplishing and show us a 2-week schedule with daily tasks. You are affiliated with a medical school and the afternoons have opportunities to have the residents teach medical students in their doctoring course. Include tools from the book Teaching for Learning, which is a wonderful book to reference. Include course overview and objectives and assessment plans. Add in whatever else you feel necessary, right? To make a robust course. And then I'm going to ask it to export it into Word. Is this good? Anything else you all want me to add to this prompt? You see how thorough the prompt is? And this, like I told you, is not that big of a deal. This is like a paragraph that we just wrote together. But on this side here, like this ECG trained GPT that we made, probably 8 pages of prompts to teach it to read EKGs. This one, the USPSTF, we made a healthcare maintenance one. This one's even more than that. I think this one was pretty thorough. These are all projects that my students are working on, which is pretty fun. Okay. So we throw it the prompt and we see what it does with the prompt. Let's see if it gets nervous with all of your eyes. I see Lisa and Lynn just joined us a little while ago. Welcome. We're excited to have you all with us this afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it made us a syllabus. Wonderful. Let's download and see how it did, and you all can be the judges of its performance. Okay. So it's given us a 2-week elective for teaching and learning for family medicine residents. Great. Course overview, learning objectives, which are pretty specific, it looks like. Some milestones, all across all areas of the milestones, different competencies. Then the 2-week schedule with morning and afternoon breakdown across the 10 days. So it gave the weekends off. An assessment plan, a mini CEX for teaching encounters, faculty observation, resident self-assessment journal, and a capstone teaching evaluation. And then resources, which I did not ask for, but it brought in the STFM, which is wild, right? And this is the actual book that I alluded to in the prompt and the milestones and some faculty development. It's referencing the institution, your own institution. I actually know Todd, one of the authors of this book. Lovely book, very, very influential for me in my teaching career. So what do you think? Pretty good?
My mind is blown.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, the
yeah,
amount of time we spend trying to crank out curriculum, right?
I know.
And then like, I mean, obviously I think I've not really been able to be part of the Peaks to Plains thing just because it doesn't work with my schedule. But we've been working for a year on, we're creating new evaluations and that align with all the
Yep.
things that we have to attest to now.
Yep.
And so now I'm thinking, okay, I can probably get this done in like 30 minutes
Yeah. So
after this phone call.
I'll
This
tell you
meeting.
this piece that we just cranked out is
Mhm.
probably not perfect. And if the six of us in this room sat and looked at it, each of
Sure.
us would have qualms with all of it, right?
Yeah, we
But
tweak it.
it's version 1.0, and
Yeah.
version 7 is going to be way better, right? When you go through it and you share it and you edit it and
Mhm.
you adjust it and you addend it. But all that can happen here. So I can respond back saying, like your learning objectives really were not specific enough. I want you to leverage Bloom's taxonomy and focus more so on higher order thinking in Bloom's, right? And then it will do that. It will adjust. Okay. Reading and reviewing. I know all of you never have had to deal with this. It's probably just me, but I've often gone late to journal club, or I've often gone ill prepared to journal club. Okay. So this was an article we published some years back, and I want to leverage ChatGPT to review and to ask some questions of the author, right? And see what it suggests. So I've already done this, but here's the article. We can download the PDF. The PDF is downloaded. I can take the PDF and drag it into the chat, and it's here in the chat. I already pulled it in. I was just doing that again to show you, so I'll remove one of them. There it is. The PDF is there. You're a resident late to journal club. Write me a 3-sentence summary of this paper to prepare me. Please include their methods, like I want to know the methods, right? And add in 2 weaknesses that the authors had that would make me look smart, right? Because weaknesses always make you look smarter than if you identify strengths, right? Like it's always like, oh, they're critical of the author, so they know what they're talking about. Okay, so let's see what ChatGPT says. Boom, just like that. I have a 3-sentence summary, and this is legit. I mean, I wrote this paper, so we used Current's curriculum framework. We did the Chen scale. We used 42 fourth-year medical students, and 2 weaknesses. Single institution, that's true. With limited generalizability for sure. And its assessment tools lack prior validation. That's also true because we made them all up. So fantastic. In seconds, I'm now much more equipped. Now, you tell me, okay, well, big deal. It's just a paper. You can have read it in a few minutes longer. What about a book, right? I can take a whole book and process with it. I can ask questions of the author. So I can say like, what else? Oh, let's be specific. What other research questions would this author be interested in asking, right? And based on the contents, here are some plausible directions. Longitudinal outcomes from specialty-specific EPAs, assessment validation, curricular design delivery, specialty comparisons, like really fascinating, like in-depth, on the fly, in seconds. I have 10 other research questions that I could have asked for furthering this project, right? So you can ask it questions on the go. Questions about this?
Can you do one really quickly for me? Because
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about Peter Attia's book Outlive in
Oh,
our
yeah.
leadership hour today. So can you summarize the contents of chapter 6 of the book Outlive
Yeah, for sure.
for a presentation for
So
leadership?
you could ask it to do that and it would do it. So I've read Outlive. I'm actually a Peter Attia fan, and you and I should talk about this about his stuff later. I do think he gets a little way over the top, not a little over the top. He's
In
way-
some ways, yes. Like
Some-
yearly colonoscopies, I think is a
Yeah.
little too much. But yeah. I don't
So
agree
just-
with everything, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, but that being said, you can ask it. So you can ask it, say, can you, for a faculty development meeting, prepare a outline and teaching points from Outlive for a, sorry, by Peter Tia, for a 30-minute presentation.
Sure.
I don't know how much time you're talking. Oh, sorry, I should say chapter 6. So already it was jumping in, but I can edit this.
Let's say 10 minutes on chapter 6.
Okay. Okay. Here you go. So it's searching the web. It's going to identify the crisis of abundance is chapter 6, apparently.
Mhm.
And then it's giving you slides. I didn't ask for slides, but for some reason it's giving slide contents. I guess because I said presentation, it pulled it into slides. But there you go. There's your take-home points.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Peter Attia's book is probably somewhere on Google Books, right? So it's probably been trained by what's already on the internet, but it also could be like pulling from random like people's blogs about Peter Attia's book. So you can see the citations and you can make sure that they're appropriate. And this brings up a very good point. You are still the content expert. So just because I have access to this, you shouldn't trust that I can build your house. It could probably walk me through every single step of the electrical, the piping, the plumbing, et cetera, et cetera. But I wouldn't live in a house that I built with ChatGPT, right, as my teacher. So just because it gives you the data doesn't mean it translates to you being the content expert. So you still have to be the content expert. And I say that to our students and residents all the time. Just because you have access to open evidence doesn't mean you can leverage it on the plane when someone is hypoglycemic. If you can't identify hypoglycemia on a plane, that's a big problem.
You're in trouble. Yes.
Yeah. It's already, time has flown. I want to be respectful, way over what I anticipated. We had many things to go through, but it's okay. I want to be respectful of your time. There's one thing I want to share with you at the very end. So if you don't mind giving me just 2 more minutes of your time. We talked about predictive models and stuff like this, and I want to talk about the future. So I'll talk about the future for a minute. The dream is what?
I'm just finishing up on it.
Computer vision, where Google can identify your skin rashes for you. What about computer listening to your voice, like you do with the ambient scribes? But what about the voice of the patient? Can it identify things? And we're part of an NIH grant right now where we're looking at voices. So imagine voice is leveraged as a diagnostic tool. So when you come in, you can answer questions and I say, read this slide for me. And the patient reads the slide. It says, Karim, you should listen to their lungs because it sounds like they might have a pneumonia based on their voice. Or maybe you're concerned about, I don't know, get an EKG because their voice is telling me that there's something going on with their an arrhythmia. And these sorts of things are outlandish. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense when we're talking about it, but it's definitely becoming a reality as this grant work that we're doing is rolling out. And then expanding beyond just your clinic, your encounter, there's something now called Epic Cosmos, and I'm hoping to see it across EHRs. But I think I have, 10 years of clinical experience under my belt and I'm super experienced, blah, blah, blah. So I've seen this before. I haven't seen this before. The I haven't becomes more unlikely. But I've never seen 274 million patients. So if I'm in Tampa and I'm typing, this patient, I don't know what the workup is, Epic can, or the EHR can tell me, well, Karim, someone in Albuquerque did the same exact presentation, had the same exact case presentation. This was the workup they ordered, and this was the result. That's what the EHRs are now trying to leverage. Big data, because they have access to so much more than you and I. My homework for you is just do it, use it, try it, build out different use cases. These were our objectives. and my references, and these are my wonderful children. And if you're interested, you can subscribe to my blog with this QR code. A lot more content like this, and hopefully you found this beneficial. I really apologize for going over time. I'm usually much better, but I think we talked so much during. But if anyone has questions, I'm happy to stick around, but thank you so much again for your attention, and hopefully this was useful for you.
This was incredible. Thank you.
I mean,
Thank
that's
you.
what, like, I mean,
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I'm-
you so much.
I'm precepting at the same time, and I'm imagining if there was like an AI preceptor, and then that goes down the path of us really being replaced. It's a whole thing. So
Yeah, well, I don't think we're far away from that. Actually, I have a friend of mine who's working on some work with the AI grading notes, right? So like AI can assess the writing of the note and tell you as a preceptor, a one-liner, like this was great, or they really had poor decision making in their assessment, or their differential was weak, and this is how you can fix it. So maybe it's direct feedback to them by the AI tool, and maybe for you as the attendant.
yeah, which is probably more than I put into a lot of the notes when it's busy. So
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, right? Like
Yeah,
it comes down
I
to
hear you. You're preaching to
just
the
a
choir.
task being accomplished.
Yeah, exactly. What else? Any other thoughts or questions from anyone?
Are you the version of Chat GPT are you using? Are you paying for that?
I had the paid version. I use my CME money for it.
Okay.
And I think it's worth every penny. If you subscribe to my blog, though, on Monday, I'm releasing an update from Google's Gemini that if you have an institutional email address, you can get Gemini for free for a year, which is like $240, from me to you, because I care about you. So enjoy that. Yeah, but if you subscribe to the blog, that post is being released on Monday too. So I'm talking about a couple of new update things on Monday.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right,
But I do
bye.
think it's worth every penny, the subscription. Sorry, go ahead, Dr. Ortega. Sorry.
No, I just said thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Be in touch. I hope you all feel comfortable reaching out. I can throw my email address in the chat if you all ever need me for anything. Give me a holler. Okay.